The U.S. has not recognized officially genocide. The United Nations has not recognized genocide. There is violence in South Africa. There's violence against black South Africans, too. You clearly are not going to acknowledge there's no genocide in South Africa.
Let's jump into a rather spicy CNN interview with a DHS secretary on the genocide claim that Trump made about white South Africans. So before we hop in, buckle in, it's going to get bad. And also leave us a like. It helps the video, helps the channel grow. We really appreciate it. And let's see what's being discussed.
The definition of genocide is aimed at extermination, right? And so although there is violence in South Africa, there's violence against black South Africans, too. So when the president says that there is genocide, where is the evidence? The U.S. has not recognized officially genocide. The United Nations has not recognized genocide. And for the thousands of people who you say were let into this country who've been granted asylum,
Absolutely.
I'm talking under the refugee resettlement program, which the president froze by executive order early in his administration.
Victor, can we take a pause and
Sure.
recognize the fact that you are defending race-based discrimination? You are defending race-based violence.
I'm not defending race-based discrimination in any way. The president uses the term genocide. There is no genocide in South Africa. And frankly, it does a disservice to people in countries around the world who are facing genocide.
I would say it's a direct slap in the face to all the peoples who are suffering and facing genocide in the Congo and Gaza and Sudan and more, many of whom have been left with their visas directly revoked from Trump action. One of the first executive actions he signed when he came into office was to specifically halt the refugee program that was for cases like these, to keep these people from having to wait years to have their claims heard. But then Trump makes an exception for race-based discrimination of white South Africans, which is nowhere near genocide, by the way. I would love to know the characteristic of genocide that applies to the white Afrikaners that doesn't apply in Gaza or in Sudan or in the Congo. In America, for instance, black people face far more racial discrimination than white Afrikaners do in South Africa, and no one would say there's a genocide going on here. Actually, MAGA would probably deny that that even exists here. So this is just clearly the weird thing that conservatives do, where they only acknowledge racism when it's something they can pretend is weaponized against white people. You see this with anti-Semitism. You see this now with the white Afrikaners. And I would bet Trump and MAGA, for that matter, have never even read the Genocide Convention. Couldn't tell you who created it, where it comes from, or any of Raphael Lemkin's writings on genocide. They probably don't even know who that is.
You clearly are not going to acknowledge there's no genocide in South Africa. What about the genocide in the Congo? Will there be this expedited path available to the Congolese and to the Sudanese who are facing actual genocide?
Again, Victor, 8,666 individuals have been granted asylum.
You have a specific number on asylum. How many of those are from the Congo or from the Sudan?
I'm happy to come back next week and lay out all the single facts, but the fact that you have not addressed the fact that we have helped these individuals who are facing persecution, and you seem to want to whitewash the fact that South Afrikaners are facing persecution, and I can't understand why, and I think a lot of Americans can't understand why, and it's left to believe that it's because of the color of their skin, Victor.
As you can see, again, it just boils down to the very weird racism exists, but only against white people argument. The friction point here has nothing to do with race at all, but instead the expedited process he gave the South Africans with the specific justification of genocide, when there is no evidence of genocide happening there. There's no argument you could make for genocide. But if he thinks genocide is enough to warrant this expedited process, why would we then not see the same for those actually experiencing genocide in Gaza, in the Congo, in Sudan, Rwanda, Bosnia, right? It's happening all across the world. Racial and ethnic discrimination as well. Humanitarian crisis. There's no qualification you could apply to the Afrikaners that you couldn't apply to these other situations. Instead, though, Trump halted the refugee programs that apply to these people, specifically revoked the visas away from them, wiped away TPS status. I mean, this went from an executive order banning the refugee program for these exact things to then chartering a plane for the Afrikaners. Where's the consistency here? And it just brings up the next logical question as to, okay, what are the tangible differences we can see in these two groups of people? And race is the most predominant one.
The president has let in Afrikaners specifically, And I'm asking how many of those who are actually facing genocide, who are from the Sudan and who are from Congo, who are being let in under some expedited path that the president has created for Afrikaners?
I don't know how many times I have to repeat this fact. 8,666 individuals have, if you will let me speak, have
You've
faced
repeated the number. You haven't
are given
answered the
asylum.
question.
I really want to point out how annoying it is for conservatives to do the whole Uno reverse card argument of pretending that the left is the one that makes things about race for, well, pointing out that racism exists and wanting to settle it. Like pointing out statistically significant systemic racism and wanting to address that isn't focusing on race, it's focusing on racism. But I would say that wanting systemic barriers for races outside of your own to remain is. And none of the clowns who pretend that the left wants to divide us on race can give any coherent answer outside of exactly that. Their basis for, oh, the left wants to divide us on race is, well, they talk about racism. Well, yeah, dumbass, it's because racism exists and it is a real problem that affects every single minority group in this country. Funny that they can understand it when it's anti-Semitism, Jews are predominantly white, or when it's the white Afrikaners, but all of a sudden it's dividing by race when you understand it about brown and black people. Why is that?